pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we'd entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
There's support. Any discussion? If not, those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The minutes are approved, which brings us to the remaining item on the agenda, a request from a property owner at 1381 Pembroke for approval of a front yard fence and to allow a 5-foot fence in lieu of the ordinance required for a 4-foot fence.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the zoning board. My name is Eric Keach with Giffords Webster, city's planning consultant. Our item for discussion and consideration this afternoon is a site at 1381 Pembroke Drive. This is for a 5-foot front yard fence. This parcel is located on the west side of Pembroke Drive and is located in the A1 zoning district. So those standards of the ordinance A1 are what applies here. So here we just have some aerials that if we need to come back with the discussion showing the adjacent properties. When we apply the yard determination graphic, the front yard along Pembroke is shown in green, the side yards in yellow, and then the rear yard in orange to the left side of the screen. So as you can see here, looking at the lot holistically, there's an existing fence on the property, more or less along the perimeter shown in purple. At the side yard transition to the front yard, the fence that exists today is primarily within the side yard and ties into the house in this location. So what's proposed and before you today is the fence segments that are shown in red. And at this point on the site, there is an existing gate. So the driveway is currently gated, and there's 2 columns that connect the sliding gate at that location. So just zooming in a little bit to show some of the more detail analysis. Again, the fence that's proposed, typically we see 4-foot fences. This is just a fence that's 1 foot higher, so it's 5 feet. That dimension requires a variance, as does the location in the front yard requiring a variance against the ordinance standards. So on the southeast side of the property, the proposed fence will tie into an existing wall structure here. And will continue on to tie into the existing column. And then on the north side, the existing column will have the proposed fence meander up to the north property line and then run along the north property line as it ties into the existing fence at that location in the side yard. So the only ordinance standards that apply for this review is just the fence standards. So again, the maximum height allowance is 4 feet. What's proposed is 5, and then the location is allowed per ordinance in the side and rear yards. So altogether, it's about 690 lineal feet of the 5-foot proposed fence, which will be black and stainless steel. A little bit of history on the project. Back in 1998, the applicant, who is the same property owner from back in 1998, requested approvals for the side yard fence segments that exist today. Those are 4 feet in height. Also under consideration at the time was the two driveway columns. Those are 6 feet in height according to the meeting minutes of December 8th, 1998. And then there's 2 light fixtures, approximately 2 feet in height, on top of the existing columns. So in addition, the sliding gate is electronic, and that's 6 feet in height, so it fits within the width of the driveway at the location where the existing columns are. And then we have some photo exhibits provided by the applicant. This is along Pembroke Drive, showing the site, looking in the driveway, and you can kind of make out one of the columns for the gate at that location here. So as you can see, everything's sufficiently screened with a lot of mature growth in the front yard, and then just some detail of the 6-foot columns, and then these are 2-foot lanterns on top of the the existing columns. And then the meeting minutes, and I guess I'm just realizing this now, the meeting minutes had mentioned a sliding gate, but as you can see, these look more like a swing gate, but nonetheless, a gate.
Eric?
Yep.
The height of the column is 6 feet?
According to the meeting minutes from 1998, I didn't do a site visit to measure, but that's what was approved.
And the gate is 5 feet?
The gate is 6 feet according, well, let me see.
6 feet, 6 feet.
Yes, 6 feet in height, according to the meeting minutes
Were those
again.
at
So.
variance with any code?
Was there a variance?
Were those
Those
at
were,
variance with existing code?
to existing code, no. So what's, so the sliding gate, where gates are permissible, are limited to 4 feet, just like the fences would be. So the fence that's proposed is 5 feet, which is 1 foot higher than what the ordinance currently allows. So
But the sliding gate was not at variance.
the gate,
Gate is a sort of a fence. So
right,
I'm wondering
it was,
if the planning commission already accommodated the resident.
yes. So the approvals, according to the meeting minutes from the planning commission in 1998, was 4 approvals of the gate, the side yard fence, but the fence never connected, let me show you. The fence never connected to the gate area. So it was just a standalone gate with the columns, and there was no fencing, and that's why it's proposed today. The fence always tied into the house in purple, and then over here on the other side. So those were approved by the Planning Commission in 1998. There was a lot of discussion about the location of the columns and how close they were in proximity to the street. And then there was an agreement with the applicant and the property owner that if the house ever sold, that the fence, the side yard fence, and the gate and columns would have to be removed. So that's a little bit of the history on this. If the property was sold prior to today, that the columns and the gate structure would have to be removed.
So in the last deliberations of the planning committee, was that understanding voided?
Not to my knowledge. I believe that still stands, and the applicant's here, the property owner's here, he can speak more to that. But as far as I understand it, according to the meeting minutes back in 1998, that's what was a condition of the approval at that time. Mhm.
So how long have the owners been in that house?
He can answer that question, but it was at least 1998.
I'm
So-
surprised.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And the,
30 years or whatever.
yes, yeah, so,
And Eric, could you just address the rationale behind why the 5 rather than the 4?
yep, so we met with the applicant a few months ago, and so the concern is pertaining to security mainly, primarily. I believe we talked about 4 feet and just explaining that that was the height limit, and the applicant can go into further detail as to why they would like that additional foot. And again, it is, you know, majority in character with the existing fence and the structure and the height of the columns, that being slightly over what the current code allows. So we thought it was a reasonable ask, since the ask today is for the front yard location of that
If I
fence.
could interrupt,
Mhm.
my understanding is that the original fence is 5 feet. If you can look at,
4 feet. So the existing fence is 4 feet, according to the plans and the minutes from 1998. But to kind of go along with height dimensions, it's the sliding gate is 6 feet in height, which is the same as the columns, as far as I understand the meeting minutes from 1998. So there is height that exceeds the 4 feet, which is typical of what we see with today's code. The height limit of the columns is 5 feet in today's code. So the columns that exist are 1 foot higher. And then you can't go any higher with any decorative features on top. So the lighting fixtures would also be a non-conforming existing feature as well.
But we're not dealing with that.
No, ma'am. No, those are all existing, not to be touched, so to speak.
what we, like our objective, again, I don't want to argue, I think the height is 5, but we're just trying to match the same height of the current fence, the new fence to the current. And if you could go to that one photo there, between you see the higher post between each section of the fence, we actually, each fence post used to go to the same height, the height of those posts. We cut them down because sadly they were spikes, deer were getting caught on that, so we cut them down to that level and flatten them, put a cap on them to just to obviously eliminate that issue. So all we're trying to do is match the same height of the current fence.
So those posts, you're saying, are now flush with the fence?
So this is how it exists currently. These individual smaller posts had a spike on the top. We've cut them all down. We left the post to that height.
I see.
And if we do
So
get
the
approval-
height of the horizontal bar is how high?
I think it's closer to 5. I don't have the exact height for
Understood.
you at the moment.
The request is for 5 feet. So, whether or not the vertical bars go over that, it's understood that the maximum height would be 5, but if it's just to match what's currently there, what the meeting minutes had stated from 1998 is that the existing fence would be 4 feet in height. So if it is slightly more, then that 5 feet allowance, if approved, should be sufficient to match what's
I'm
currently.
sorry to perseverate. The columns are how tall?
The fence that was approved was 4 feet.
The columns on either
The
side of it.
stone.
Oh, the columns, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. The columns are 6 feet.
And in 27 years ago, roughly, they were approved on the condition that they'd be removed when the property changed hands.
Correct, yes.
When the planning commission met, did they deliberate on whether they wanted to make an explicit acceptance of the columns remaining?
Do you recall how that agreement?
Again, off the top of my head, I thought my understanding of the agreement was if we sell the house, the city has the right to tell us to take those down.
Let me explain how I'm trying to think about this, and it might be faulty reasoning. Planning commission may or may not have, but I'm going to presume it has at least as much authority as this committee. And if they explicitly considered allowing the columns to stand at 6 feet,
6 feet. Mhm.
it sounds like they were onto something in allowing the now property owner to do what they needed to do with the property. I'm not exempting us from responsibility. I'm just trying to be respectful of a decision that may have been part of the planning commission's consideration.
If I may, I believe that the planning commission did consider that. They permitted the post, obviously at 6 feet with the gate at 6 feet. Currently, the fence that exists, and correct me if I'm wrong, does not connect to the gate. So I do not believe that the historical planning commission considered the outline of this particular request. They considered the existing fence at the height, and then separately the post at the height, and the agreement that was struck in 1998, 1997, 1998 was, that there would be removal when the property changed hands, but they were essentially two separate items that were approved separately because they're at two different locations on the property, if that clarifies things.
Thank you.
And I believe when I read through the meeting minutes, it was a focus on the columns and the gate. So it seemed as though that the discussion and deliberation from the planning commission at that time had talked about concerns about setting a precedent for other properties in the area and the distance setback from the property line. That ultimately led to them making the determination that if the house ever sold, that they would allow for this and approve the gate and columns subject to that occurrence happening if the property ever sold. So now, today before you is to just request approval of the front yard fence shown in red to tie into that existing condition.
And that fence actually will not be seen because of the grove. And as I read through it, it sounds like the reason they would like to go 5 feet is really a security issue.
Yes.
And I think given who lives there, I can appreciate the security issue. So I think that's what we really consider. The posts or whatever, that's another issue. What will we allow another foot on the fence to help provide better security for the family? So I think that's, am I correct? That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. And that,
I understand.
Yeah.
yeah, and that was also discussed with the meeting minutes from 1998 as well, was the Planning Commission being on record to state that their acceptance of the justification for allowing approvals was based on the public figure that lives there and the security concerns that were presented at that time.
Can I ask a hypothetical, and
Sure.
maybe someone else will
Okay.
answer it, but
Mhm.
if I had a special needs child who was running out in the street too frequently, and I wanted a 5-foot fence to keep a catastrophe from happening, that would be my personal need, not a need of the property. But would the committee approve my request? Hypothetical.
If I may answer,
Sure, hypotheticals are an appropriate analysis for this application, in my opinion.
Possible. But what I'm trying to distinguish, it's a need of the property owner, but not of the property per se. And I don't mind where we come
That's-
down on this. I
That's
just
accurate. Yeah, that's
want to
good.
understand it.
Yeah, that's good.
I will say you're touching on a relevant legal principle for this consideration. Property variances, the standard is practical difficulty. And when evaluating that, the board can take into consideration all of the facts on the record. One of those facts is the fact that there is a public figure who has unique security needs for themselves as a person. Now, whether or not that unique security need is or can be characterized in this case as a feature of the property as required under Michigan law and the MZEA is something for the board to weigh during this hearing.
So those are the two ordinance standards that are before you, the 5-foot height and fence, and then the location in the front yard. And the pictures that were provided illustrate and demonstrate that the front yard is heavily vegetated, and so there's a lot of mature trees there. So there is a lot of difficulty seeing into the property from both adjacent sides, that being private property, and from the street as well. So city engineer had performed a review. I don't know if Leah, you want to add anything?
We really don't have anything to add as far as engineering goes, so I'm here if you have questions.
All the neighbors have been consulted.
Thank you. We do have 2 letters of support from neighbors. I did have an exhibit that got lost, but there's the neighbor to the northwest, so on that northern side has an approval, and then a neighbor across the street, at least from the information that I have. And I don't believe there's any letters of opposition.
Does anyone representing the property owner wish to make any other comment?
I'm being the property owner, I hope that it's appropriate for me to speak just on the safety issue. I have had for the past 5 years, a young man, unfortunately, I use the term stalker, who's currently in jail, which has, I guess, expedited mine and my do have a legitimate concern on the safety issues.
You have security cameras that are gonna supplement the fencing?
We do have security cameras, I think we have 8 right now. I'm going to add more in light of, I think we've all dealt with that, with the break-ins that occurred a couple years
Yeah.
ago with, seems to be resolved all over the country right now, but we added cameras and we're just adding more for that purpose as well.
I have a question of our attorney. We have a proposed approval motion.
Mhm.
We also have one to deny.
Correct.
I'm looking at the approval one, and the third point says the plight of the property owner is due to the uniqueness of the property. That's partly the truth, but it's also due to the uniqueness of the security needs of the individual. Would that be an acceptable modification?
The zoning board of appeals is legally required to find that the property itself is unique. Now, what facts go to that are on the record that go to support that finding are up for the board to determine. But the finding that the property itself is unique, is required in order to grant a variance.
So your recommendation would be, even if one wanted to approve this, not to add any additional language, because the proceedings are in the minutes?
My recommendation is that if the board were to grant this, it should find that the property, that the plight of the property owner is due to the uniqueness of the property. However, if the board, to supplement that finding, if the board were to find that there are several items that make the property unique, such as the limited vision into the property from neighboring properties, the fact that this is a heavily wooded area, and the fact that there is a unique security need due to the individual who currently owns the property, all of those facts could theoretically support the finding, the necessary legal finding that the plight of the property owner is due to the uniqueness of the property. But that decision is, of course, up to the board.
So if I can understand the implications of that,
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't approve everybody that wanted a 5-foot fence for security of their home.
That would, a decision like that would be up to the board.
Right, but it's not likely we'd find that a shoe-in argument. I'm telling you my estimation. You don't have to agree with it.
I would never opine on what the board would or would not find. I do know that the board has considered gates and fences for other property owners, certainly within
Thanks.
my tenure.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're going at. This would not create a mandatory precedent that the ZBA or the city needs to follow. Every one of these is analyzed on a case-by-case basis, as just as the city attorney outlined. I'm not worried about creating some circumstance whereby anybody that has personal concerns over their kid running out in the street wants additional security. It's not a concern.
I'm inclined to approve this, and I'll make a motion. I move to approve a dimensional variance from sections 24-242B3 and 24-242B3A in order to allow a 5-foot high fence in lieu of the ordinance allowed 4-foot fence in the front yard. The applicant has demonstrated practical difficulty for the following reasons. 1, strict compliance with the requirements would unreasonably prevent or severely limit the owner from improving the property. The proposed 5-foot front yard fence would be a continuation of the existing rear and side yard fence and would tie in the existing driveway, gate columns and piers approved by the ZBA 1998. 2, the requested variance would do substantial justice to the property owner as well as other property owners. The applicant's request is an extension of the improvements which already exist on the property. Further, the applicant contends that the additional fencing would not be visible to any neighbors or from the street. Property owner has provided several letters of support from their neighbors regarding the fencing project. Like the property owners, due to the uniqueness of the property, there are unique security concerns present on the property which were not present in 1998. When the original fencing project was completed, the owner's property is wooded, and the additional fencing would be screened from public view and from the neighbors. The proponents' problem is not self-created. The circumstances in the intervening decades between the original project date and the current request have made the completion of the project necessary. 5, the granting the variances will not adversely affect the purposes or objectives of the master plan. Proposed master plan in residential areas is to allow homeowners the opportunity to improve the property while minimizing impact on the neighbors.
Second.
Your support for that? Any discussion? If not, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Is there any other business for this committee?
No, sir.
No?
Congratulations.
The meeting is adjourned.
Appreciate it.
I've got just a sidebar question. The fencing in your southern area, it doesn't go to the boundary line. Is there a reason for that?
At the very
At the
back.
very- at the very-
I was just watching that, and I'm not sure, because the fences changed.
So is that like, is that a difficult topography down to your southern tip?
Yeah, so I think,
Okay.
if any, I don't know how long ago I've been on the board, but there used to be a street back there called Old Knob that ran on Orchard Ridge, right along the property line. There was a house here, Holtby's used to own a home there, it's irrelevant, but there was a road back there, we agreed with all the neighbors to close the road, and everybody picked up a little bit of frontage, and so it changed the property lines. I think this is the current, and then the fence was adjusted. I believe if this is the exact property line, it now runs along here, and will come more straight all the way along, so it is on the property line in that corner, but it is.
So, well, this is totally irrelevant to your application, but if that shaded area is your property and your fence is where it is, you're running the risk of losing that property.
I understand, yeah, so I'm 99% sure that isn't exact how the fence, it doesn't match the property.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
kind of a heads up.
Technically, this is irrelevant as well, but on this corner, because the neighbors back here have a garage right up against the property line, we moved, instead of making them knock down their garage, we moved the fence 4 inches on that. I may lose 4 inches one day on that.
Well, so
But
maybe
property line.
if there's any ambiguity, you just tell your neighbor down there, hey, you got permission to use my property.
Yeah.
And so you're okay.
So I'm pretty sure the fence has moved down in that corner.
Okay.
That's with the neighbors on both sides.
Okay.
But I will double check on that. There's a lot of land back here.
Yeah, you don't want to lose your land.
No, exactly.
You're all set.
Right.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned at